The Mike Tamano Happening.
With those of us who have been in the outdoor industry on the periphery or either headlong into it, you've always been an inspiration. So it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance again, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Really, it's I started doing this when I just turned 19 years old, and I blinked, and here we are. And it's just really cool in such a challenging market of ever-changing media to still be out there doing it for reasons that I hope are the right ones.
Yeah, well, your reasons are indeed the right ones because, as we've noted many times, that you are not only an expert and a diehard fisherman, hunter, outdoorsman, nature lover, but you bring it to the kids so often, and that's what's important. I want to talk about how your career has grown, what you're doing now with your calling in life, and also with your career. So you have written Sports Afield, I know Sport Fishing, editor-in-chief of Texas Fish and Game. Mm-hmm. You've been a broadcaster for many years on Texas radio, deer and deer hunting. Just dozens and dozens of articles. So when you talk about that, you go back to the childhood of Chester Moore. When did nature first take hold of you, and how did it do it?
I don't have a timeline where nature wasn't in my life. I mean, as early as I can remember were memories of fishing with my dad when I was maybe 4 years old. And I was always just obsessed with wildlife. I mean, even if you took the hunting and fishing element out, which has been, paramount in it, I still just loved wildlife. So it was fishing and hunting with my dad, looking at those magazines like Sports Afield or Field and Stream. And
I remember getting in touch with you at Texas Fish and Game for an article I was doing. And I remember talking to your colleagues and them telling me how enamored you were with the world of flounder.
Yeah, that's been something that was what really got me to the next level of my career was that I was really into that, and there weren't a lot of people that were writing about it. And I just went gung-ho with it and wrote a book and kind of become something I was really known with in the Gulf Coast. And the flounder opened a lot of doors for me. So I still love flounder. I still love to flounder fish. And that's something that'll always be with me.
Your collaboration with Eric Adams was something that came out of left field, and it was really, really successful. You produced a really cool DVD, Wildlife, Wild Times, and you were telling me before we started, you keep in touch with our boy Eric.
Yeah, Eric's one of my closest friends. I met him at a Man-O-War concert because I'm a fan.
Right.
And before I did an interview with him, a buddy of mine at the time, he was a newspaper reporter. We kind of created a website to interview rock stars that we like, and I ended up going to meet Man-O-War. And before I ever interviewed Eric, I said, "Hey man, I heard that you bow hunt." And he pulls a turkey call out of his bag in a hotel lobby and starts blowing on it. And I was in a band at the time, and I brought my guitar player with me. And he literally leans over and goes, "Dude." And that began an adventure that was this award-winning Wildlife and Wild Times DVD that was put out on Magic Circle Music, and I got to go to Germany with Man-O-War and promote it, and he still comes and hunts and fishes down here sometimes, and about every 4 or 5 years I'll go up to New York.
Yeah. Chester Moore is with us, and today on the Mike Tamano Happening, we're going to talk to someone who has been writing, producing, broadcasting, and singing from the mountaintop about the great outdoors. And it's not only hunting and fishing. You have this fascination with creatures. I know you know a lot about big cats.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through some of the great adventures that you've had, what you specialize in, what you are still learning about, because that's what I get guys like you, and okay, I could talk to you about flounder all day, and I'll walk out of this room 10,000 times better of a flounder fisherman than I ever was. The only time I fished for flounder was in New Jersey with Dean Ween from the band Ween, Mickey Melchiondo. And
oh, wow.
There was a strange regulation, like they had to be over 14 inches but under 18. It was some weird stipulation.
Spot limit, yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I call it the thump.
The thump.
It's like you feel this really hard thump, but like a thump. We call it the thump.
Yeah.
And when the thump happens, you know there's action going to happen.
Yeah, you got to be ready for it. Yeah.
It's fun, man. And I think up there you guys probably have southern flounder down here. I think you have what's called a summer flounder up there. So, basically the same fish, just kind of like a subspecies.
Yeah, very bizarre. One of those things we're not used to seeing, because you think of fish, you think of a way a fish looks, and they are definitely not the way a fish looks.
I mean, they're born with their eyes just like a normal fish, and they eventually migrate to one side of the body. So the whole process is bizarre.
That is bizarre. Yeah, it's one of those animals that morphs its shape. And that's the more you delve into nature, and you know this more than anybody, the more you're going to find things that just blow your mind. You know what blows my mind are brine shrimp. When we were kids, we'd see sea monkeys advertised in the back of comic books, and they were just brine shrimp. And here's an animal, a creature that lives in suspended animation until it gets to water. How bizarre is that?
It's really weird. There's always things in nature like that you'll see and just blow your mind. I think that's part of my endless fascination with it. It's like, I've been doing a lot with wild sheep, which is a real passion of mine. And my wife, Lisa, and I were in Colorado last year, and we had 4 mega bighorn sheep about 50 yards from us. And I'm shooting these photos, and the one ram looks really nervous. And I think he's about to bolt, but the only way to get out is over us or up that big 15-foot tall bluff. And the sheep looked over and ran and jumped straight up, and I got photos of it. And it was unbelievable literally watching an animal make a 12 to 15-foot jump up, and like it was nothing. There's always something in nature that's captivating, exciting, and mysterious.
Yeah, you talk about sheep, and I know they're a great passion of yours. I was in Colorado, and I saw uncanny leaps and bounds, like you're talking about, of sheep, where they would be from my observation, on the road taking pictures. It looked as though they were on a level wall, but they could scale it as if it were a staircase. And then you get closer and you're like, how could they possibly? They're defying gravity. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, man, the Lord did some cool stuff with wildlife and wild sheep, like that mountain world. They're always mind-boggling, because you're like, man, I would die looking at that, much less trying to climb up it.
Right. Yeah,
guys are like it's no problem.
When I first met you, we talked hunting and fishing. And over the years, I've kept in touch, Facebook. And the nice thing about Facebook is people that you don't see all the time, you can still keep in touch and say God bless and hello and happy birthday. But you've had a journey of faith, and I've noticed that more in recent years being stated. I don't know how long you've been a Christian or how that came into your life, but I'd like you to, I know you don't shy away from talking about it. So tell me about how you came to faith.
Well, thanks for asking about that. I gave my life to Christ at a vacation Bible school when I was 9. But like a lot of people, I just walked from it. I'm like our mutual friend, Ted Nugent. I've never done a drug. I've never been drunk, but I played in metal bands for 18 years. I was kind of like a unicorn, right? But I was living for me, and at 19 years ago this year at a Stryper concert, at the end of their set, Michael Sweet, the singer, stood up in this nightclub and said, I believed in him, but now I really accepted and followed him. And then 14 years ago, me and my wife adopted our beautiful daughter from China. And my daughter was supposed to have cerebral palsy. She was 16 pounds at 2 years old, couldn't walk, couldn't talk. Took her home, had hands laid on her, and watched her stand up and walk. And when that happened, that transformed a believer to a follower, because I will never compare myself to the Apostle Paul, but he had a moment when he was going to Damascus, Syria. He was an enemy of the church to harass Christians and persecute them when he ran to the risen Christ. And honestly, that moment and seeing that the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the Prince of Peace cared enough about a little girl that meant statistically nothing to the world to get involved in her life like that. I said it's game on now. There's no turning back.
You're at Vacation Bible School as a kid. I think there's a type of believer that's passive, and then there's the active believer, and the person who says, we go to church on Easter and Christmas, and grandma likes to say the rosary around Lent, and that's fine. Believe me, when it comes to faith, no one struggles more than I do. That's why I'm inspired by people like you, because the devotion and the not looking back aspect of it is very inspiring, because I look at the world and I say, well, without faith, there's no hope. And
that's the ticket. If someone were to say, what does Christ bring to your life? It would be one word, and one word would really stand out, and that is hope.
Yeah.
Because what I tell people is, if you can look out there, because the best we have to offer in America is the best place to live, is if you're really talented, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're athletic, we love you. But if you're not, we throw you in the trash heap. Or if you're like that and then you lose that ability, we forget about you. And his love is the antithesis of that, which is, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth on him will not perish but have an everlasting life. And so I want other people to experience that. And it's funny because I'm like the least religious guy, like the American church wouldn't select Chester Moore to be its representative, but they don't get a vote.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, the message of the Bible and Christ, which is universal. I mean, it touches on all the major religions. They've all, touched upon him. What he put forth and what the Bible has, when people talk about their individual relationships with God, I think you've touched on that. It's only about you and your Lord. And I think that's an important aspect of it that people miss out, because I don't always enjoy going to church, because I'm a private person, if that makes sense to you. And church for me has become clingy in the past when I've tried to attend churches. And so these are things I wrestle with. And so, that's why with your fervor and your commitment, it's inspiring me. So I just want you to know that.
Well, man, I appreciate that, because I'm like everyone else, man. I struggle with, faith sometimes, certainly struggle with this crazy world that's growing darker by the second. And so that's the reason we're out there doing it, even to the point of teaching young people that are struggling with like terminal illness or parental loss and things like that, to get involved with wildlife conservation and help find hope in their life. And that has been an incredible journey in its own right. Yeah.
So here's Chester Moore. You grew up ever since you were, your late teens. You're writing articles about fishing, hunting, and animals and conservation projects. You're getting awards left and right, for your work, because you are just gung-ho, because that's the kind of guy you are, whether it's playing music in a band or chasing after goats on a ranch. So here's a guy who comes to Christ 20 years ago, 19 years ago, and you say, okay, well, I'm a nature nut. I love children and I want to give them hope. Let's mix them all together. And so let's talk about what you've done with that and how they've manifested.
Really interesting was 10 years ago. I started our church, our children's pastor had me come in once a month about 14 years ago, and bring animals. Like I didn't have exotic animals, so I would go catch like local snakes and, turtle stuff and whatever. And I would bring my bow out, show kids how to shoot archery and stuff. And then the Holy Spirit kind of moved on my heart to start writing curriculum, and I taught curriculum about creation and God's role in it. And then the presence of so many children that were struggling with so many dark things came, and we found out that kids related to animals. So 10 years ago, me and my wife founded the Kingdom Zoo Wildlife Center.
Yeah,
me and Lisa, and that is two main programs. One, we go to foster group homes a lot. We do bring animals. We'll cater a meal, bring animals, do animal presentations with exotic animals. And then we have a friend with a critical illness or loss of a parent or a sibling. And we granted our 170th of those wishes yesterday. We have Higher Calling Wildlife, and that is some of the teens in the program and others that we're teaching how to use media and social media to raise awareness to wildlife conservation. We've done everything from taking boys on fly fishing expedition trips for Guadalupe bass, which are a Texas-only species, to taking a girl to capture desert bighorns. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Department have a great relationship with Texas Parks and Wildlife and the National Wild Turkey Federation, letting kids go on Eastern wild turkey releases when birds are brought in from out of state. So
cool.
A lot of stuff, man.
Yeah, is it, the National Wild Turkey Federation, the stuff that they, and I know you've been involved with them forever. I have always been a supporter of them because I support all of the conservation groups that are doing great work. But when you see them do those turkey releases and then they follow up to check on the population, it's like, this is amazing. This is really conservation at its finest.
It's incredible, man. And we've got to do, I think we've had 4 different kids get to go on those things. And we've also have a private biologist in Texas who works with TPWDs, let us go and bring kids on a turkey release with his program. And it's cool and freeing to see a kid who's been struggling with things that make them feel not so free in life. Take that box, turkey in it that was in Maine the day before, and help restore eastern turkeys to the eastern fringe of Texas and see that bird fly out. And we had a girl, her name is Rihanna Holloway, and we took her on our first expedition, was a desert bighorn capture with Texas Parks and Wildlife. And that's like the apex of any of these wildlife restoration things, these sheep things. And she got to put the GPS collar on the biggest ram of the day.
She'll never forget that.
And what's really cool, we won an award for the video we produced. So we went up with the Texas Outdoor Writers Association this year. And Rihanna is now a senior at Texas Tech pursuing wildlife management degree.
Well, look at that. That's how you do that, my friend.
Yeah, we're real proud of Ree, and she has cystic fibrosis. That's how she connected with us, and she's doing wonderful. And it's just a way to help kids and young people find hope, but also benefit wildlife. And that part is like so fun. And I have a bunch of cool stuff up my sleeve that we're working on, some other projects.
It's a win-win-win.
Yeah, man, it's great. And it's so fun. And I've worked with kids since I was a kid. I was 19, 20 years old doing little reptile presentations for local elementaries. And to be able to do it and then do it and still be like, world's recognized for it 30 years in is a product of basically the grace of the Lord and a relentless work ethic.
Amen. Amen. We have a camp in honor of my late father that we do. Wow. It'll be our 11th year this year because when he died, I had long moved out of the house. So I knew that he helped kids at the club. When we were kids, we lived in the south side of Chicago. So every weekend, my father would take my friends and I fishing, camping, hiking, whatever. When he died, I see all these kids from all walks of life at his wake, and they're saying, "Oh, your father bought my brother and I a tent, and my mother took us camping, or your dad took us fishing," or, wow. And so I said, well, let's keep this alive. And, you were talking about the changes. We bring in kids every year from the inner city who they've never seen a forest preserve, let alone the hundreds of acres we bring them to for the camp.
Wow.
And it takes hold. So Chester Moore, you were talking about, when you see kids that ask for a wild wish and you grant those wishes, what are some of the wishes that they ask for? Because I want to talk about this charity that you do, and then I wanted to make sure people know how to get in touch with you. So what were some of the interesting ones that you've had?
Well, the main thing that we do is we have a collection of 40 exotic small animals here at our facility in the Orange, Texas area, and most of the kids now go through this encounter with us and our animals, and it's mind-blowing. But sometimes you'll have a kid that wants something very specific. We just did the elephant encounter for a young lady out in Fredericksburg, Texas, and that was incredible. We have done sea turtle encounters. We took a young lady doing a cage dive in a shark tank in an aquarium, which was awesome. That was last summer. She loves sharks. She got a close-up look at sharks in a safe way because we were in a shark cage. We've done everything from wolf encounters to a kid got to play with baby mountain lion cubs. We've done it's been amazing to see sloth encounters. and just a lot of neat stuff. And no matter what the kid's going through, when they get up close to something like that, it's life changing, because what happens is, Mike, we'll have a moment where there's a trauma in our life, and in our subconscious, what happens is, and it's probably a spiritual battle too, but it tells us that, hey, life will never get better than before that happens. This is a way to let kids know that life can still be good. And that's really the message.
Amen. And how can people get in touch with Wild Wishes?
So they can go through kingdomzoo.com. They can go through Kingdom Zoo Wildlife Center on Facebook, wildwishes.org, all of the above, and different ways to connect with us.
All right. Okay. Before we go on, I want to get into the deep stuff. You know, we've been talking, this has been a great interview. Chester Moore, you're always, I mean, I could just sit and talk to you forever. A big regret so far in my life, I haven't shared a campfire with you, but I will rectify that someday soon.
Let's do that.
Yeah. And you have, now I've hunted, I've had the privilege of hunting Texas. There's no place on earth like it, because when I went to Texas, this was 2018, to hunt some ranches, and I love the glassing of the animals, and then, the spot and stalk. I mean, that's so exciting. But I'm driving down, a road in Texas, and I see a zebra dancing across someone's field, or you'll see a kudu on someone's lawn. It's just insane what goes on in Texas.
The exotic animal thing here is wild. We took 2 boys on one of our Wild Wishes expeditions 3 years ago, and I slammed on the brakes near Barksdale, Texas, and I said, boys, no matter what anyone ever tells you they saw on the side of the road anywhere in America, you have the ultimate game topper. And there were 2 tapers.
There were two tapir?
Yeah, there were 2 tapirs on the side of the road at this guy's place. They weren't to hunt. They were just part of this collection. But the guy also had kudu and sable and Dama gazelle. It's pretty amazing, and it's fascinating. And one of the great conservation triumphs of that animals like black buck antelope from India and Pakistan have been sent back to those nations because of hunting ranches here, and they provide great sport. There's some problems with some of the exotics, and aoudad are causing problems for our native bighorns in West Texas, and we got to get a hold on some of that. But it's been an interesting ride, and once you especially get in the central part of the state, you never know what you're going to see across the road.
No, you never do. I saw a zebra, and I thought maybe I'd been driving too long. Maybe I needed to pull over and take a rest, but it blew my mind. And, you talk about the introduced species there. There's a lot of aoudad and Addicks antelope, which people don't even know from India. They're only in Texas now. I think they've been poached completely in their native country.
Well, we have scimitar horned oryx and other animals like that are that there's problems with overseas to the level of extirpation in some of the range and things like that. And it's just really interesting to see how it works. Not a perfect system, but what it does is it does allow for like an arc, so to speak, over here in the Lone Star State.
Yeah, there's no place like it. And you've always been a Texan, correct?
Yeah, my whole life. I mean, honestly, if I had the money right now, I would go live in the mountains of Colorado, have a winter home here. I love the mountains, and I love the stream fishing and the elk and the moose and the bighorn and all that. But I'm returning to Colorado here in a few weeks. But also, I just love, one thing I love about Texas is the freedom and the attitude and don't tread on me kind of vibe here, Yeah,
and people are so nice in Texas.
I got a great story about that. So I'm in Redding, California about 10 years ago getting gas. I visited a friend of mine. And I go pay the clerk, because the thing wouldn't work outside. And I said, she gave me my change back. And I said, thank you. She goes, you must be from Texas. I said, my accent? She goes, no. She said, no one else says thank you.
You said thank you. God bless. Isn't that something? Well, we've talked with Chester Moore about coming up as an outdoor journalist, your call to a higher calling, both figuratively and literally, and what you've done with children. But I gotta pick your brain on something, because I have hunted on ranches across America, and occasionally I'll take a Corsican ram The exotics that are on certain
the ones
ranches.
that I can afford to hunt. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So when you say, okay, we take a wild, my safari is a summertime wild boar and ram hunt. Okay. So I have tried a number of ways to prepare it. Now I've had sausage made from Corsican rams and Hawaiian
Sausage
rams.
is great.
The sausage is good, but is there a way? Because guys, I don't like to shoot something unless it's a predator that you're kind of trying to eradicate from hurting, the population of ducks or whatever. But I'm not talking about predator hunting. When you kill something that's a game animal, I don't hunt for horns. I hunt for the freezer. So how do you prepare Corsican ram?
Here's what you do when you kill like an exotic type sheep, which are way different than, true wild sheep. But what you do is you get it mixed with 30% beef, get all of it ground up and make burgers.
Make burgers. Okay.
And we just get about 30% beef mixed in with it. And it makes great burgers.
Yeah, it gives it a rich flavor without being overpowering.
Because it's, most of that meat's pretty lean. So you get just a regular, not like, the low fat beef, kind of a regular beef, and ground beef, mix it in there and make burgers. And it's great.
Okay. All right. Now, see, I knew I'd get that from you because you've eaten everything. And, and another thing, like with wild boar, what I'll do, I'll try to shoot a sow or a small one.
Yeah.
But if I do shoot a big nasty boar, I have found that quartering them and putting a level of ice with some lemon juice and some apple cider vinegar and letting them sit there for 3 or 4 days in the cooler and just let it get slushy, in there. What do they call it? An ice slurry when it kind of becomes ice and water. And I found that takes any of the stench out from the kitchen cook. What do you think?
That kind of thing does help. For example, like if you catch a shark, and we only harvest like black tip or small Atlantic sharp-nosed sharks that are very abundant and release anything else. But sharks have a huge liver, and it toxifies if it takes too long. It makes the meat funky. So we'll bleed it, and then we'll marinate the meat in milk. So kind of the same principle.
Yeah, kind of let it sit in something. Yeah. Well, you and I share an affinity for music and film. So we do a thing called the Desert Island Pick. So you're going to an island. You're gonna hunt your sheep and your wild boar and fish all the streams. But you got to bring 3 albums and 3 films because you're gonna be there for a while.
Oh wow, 3 albums and 3 films. Okay, this is tough. So it's gonna be a diverse album set. It's gonna be Iced Earth Horror Show.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, Iced Earth, which is a epic metal band. Horror Show's a great one because they put all your horror films to
It'll be Manowar live, Hell on Stage, because it has the bulk of their catalog on it.
All right.
Cheating. It'll be Striper. No More Hell to Pay album came out in 2012. Incredible album.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing I needed? It was an album and what else?
And 3 movies.
Oh, this is where it gets hard. So I can't do a whole franchise. So we're going to go with The Godfather.
Okay.
Tombstone.
Yep.
And Return of the Jedi.
Very diverse. See, that's the thing.
I have a Darth Vader tattoo.
You do? Okay.
I'm a mega Star Wars fan my entire life. And so I have a Darth Vader tattoo and a Creature from the Black Lagoon tattoo and a great white shark. So I'm all about diversity.
Yes. Well, Creature from the Black Lagoon, one of my favorite movies. And
so I got to know Ben Chapman, who did all the above water scenes for the movie in his latter years, and my band did a project where he did like a cool narration for our CD for us. And
cool.
So that was awesome, man. And I'm always about those childhood dreams come true, and that was one of those fun ones.
Yeah, who did the underwater? Rico, what was his name?
Rico Browning.
Rico Browning. I have his autograph somewhere around here that my partner on the air brought for me.
I'll tell you what, man, his work and that underwater stuff, what it was is Ben's a lot bigger. So out of water, you had the, big hulking kind of guy, but Rico was this next level swimmer. And Rico also, by the way, did the work in Flipper, our series. So
is that right?
I interviewed him on my radio show like 19 years ago or something. So
look, you talk about having a niche. So they say, okay, we need a guy to put a costume on and swim underwater very athletically. Let's call Rico. He had that. He had that gig. That was his.
Yeah, it was really cool. He even worked on one of the Bond movies, the one where they had the big tiger shark attacking somebody. He was the diver that handled the shark in the movie. So they're really behind the scenes. So, you want a niche, man? We can, in America, at least for the next 5 minutes, may expire to that. There's still enough freedom to do stuff like that.
Ain't that the truth? That could be and I want you to come on one day, and I want to talk deeper about your faith and how it applies to today in society. But we'll save that for another. Yeah, because that'll be another couple hours we'll spend. But I will tell you this: I have been inspired by your writings. Your tips are always spot on, and your endless dedication to nature, wildlife, and conservation is a true inspiration. You've kept me afloat in times when I've said, I can't do this fight anymore, because it is a fight sometimes.
It really is, and I want to thank you for that, because it's just that desperation to want to see it there, to think that there might be a mountain without a sheep. And thank God we got great groups like the Wild Sheep Foundation or the Rocky Mountain Bighorn Society, or the forest without the gobble of a turkey. Thank God for the National Wild Turkey Federation. Or a seagrass flat without permit tarpon and bonefish. Thank God for the Bonefish and Tarpon Trust. Or, a flat in Texas without redfish. Thank God for CCA. So there's dedicated people out there. And what I think I have been able to do is I have been able to stay focused and inspired on it. And even in a fishing how-to article, ingrain ways that people can connect and help and keep it going, because, man, I don't need any other reason for it to exist other than the fact that I know it's there. That means I can still go pursue it. And, it's just this beautiful thing that we have this opportunity. Our mutual friend Ted Nugent talked about this, that we can go hunt and fish in America recreationally is mega. That doesn't happen in a whole lot of places in the world, especially the hunting end of stuff. So that we can celebrate this, keep the resources moving forward. If I can be a voice for that, and still do this, and I'm just getting started here. We got our highercalling.net, my blog. I hope people go subscribe to that and keep up what we call it the inspirational voice of wildlife conservation. And we're going to move forward, and we're going to inspire people. And a lot of times, Mike, my inspirational stuff is me trying to stay inspired myself.
Yeah,
It's tough out there. So if you see me put a quote out there, usually it's for Chester Moore first. You know what I mean?
I gotcha. That's why I write and contact my legislated officials and my elected officials, because it's for me, and when I see the apathetic response where someone says, oh, what is your letter going to do? What is your email going to do? And I said, but see, that's why nothing gets done, because maybe my one email isn't going to do anything, but if there were 10,000 of them, you could rest assured that something would be done and for the better. And I think the apathy, especially in the outdoors collective, hunting, fishing, trapping, anglers, rafters, canoers, whatever, the apathy they have towards legislation that gets passed willy-nilly, and a lot of that stuff gets passed because, Chester, this, they don't even look at it. It's like, hey, could you sign this? And that's it. They're done because no one else got to them ahead of time.
That's why it's important to have groups like the Houston Safari Club Foundation I'm a member of, or Safari Club International, have lobbyists out there to contend with these things, because there's so much, and not only at the federal level, but the state level and in bureaucracies that get written in. And it's a constant barrage of craziness, and the demographics are not shifting in favor of wildlife, and a lot of things going to be going on. I'm going to make a prediction here. My prediction is something I've been unfortunately seeing. I call it the Great American Wildlife Conflict, that we are about to see. It's already begun, but give it 5 years, an unbelievable number of conflicts between humans and animals as our population goes deeper into the forests and the mountains and the swamps, and wildlife populations increase. And there will be people that before were very anti-hunting, who are all of a sudden going to go, oh, we might need to kill a few of those bears or boars.
those joggers that are getting eaten on their jog in California by mountain lions. Yes.
Texas, it's hogs. We've had a fatal hog attack 2 years ago, and a couple of other non-fatal since then. And so a lot of crazy things going on. This conflict is going to rise, and at the epic drought that we're currently having, which is the story the corporate wildlife media is not telling you. The drought that's happening in half of America right now is catastrophic. and that will only drive more wildlife into areas. I mean, they're having to drop water out of helicopters in the Nevada desert to give bighorns and mule deer water right now. So a lot of crazy stuff going on, and that's why we got to be at the forefront of it. And I think people need to know they can be empowered to be a voice for this. And I tell you what, I'll make a challenge anyone listening. If you take up a cause of some conservation or hunter rights or whatever you're kind of bent toward and get involved, I challenge you to do this, because you will have more joy doing that than actually hunting, fishing, or backpacking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Once you get involved and you know that you're making a difference, boy, that's really, and that's in everything in life. When when people get into something for the right reason, it's because they know they can make a difference. They can make a positive impact on someone and a cause and move it forward in the right direction. Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Boy, you've been around this block a few times. You've thought about these things a lot, haven't you?
Yeah, so me and my wife, when she's sitting right here, we'll be driving down somewhere down the highways and byways, and I'll have like this crazy radical idea about whatever. She's like, "Oh, great, he's going to do it." We're going to be doing this in a year. This will happen.
Yeah.
Because I just know how wonderful and beautiful it is, and I know I've had an impact. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I mean, to still be doing this 30 years and picking up 5 awards and the thing about the awards I won the other night at the press club here is that those were in mainstream media. I was the only outdoors person there, and those were written for conservation stories, 1 on wild turkey, 2 broadcast on wild sheep and other stuff. So it's a matter of kind of going into even those mainstream channels and saying, hey, guys, we, the hunter, fisher, conservationists, are leading the pack here. And why don't you come join us in using your media voice to show what's really going on and who's doing the conservation work out there.
And who's doing the real work. That's interesting. You say that. Michael Waddell tells a story. And Michael Waddell, for those who don't know, he's a big outdoor television guy. He's very entertaining, and he has a good heart. And but the thing Michael said is when he first got hired, this is before there were specific outdoor channels, when there was Versus channel and stuff like that.
There was the outdoor channel.
Yeah, there was and he would go to these Hollywood parties and there would be people from MTV and such there, and they would look down upon him. And he said at first he was just a teenage kid. He felt bad because he never knew anything but living in Georgia and doing, the outdoor thing. Everybody did it. And to see it frowned upon. And then he went to a video editing class and had the same thing happen there, where people would walk out because he would show his work, which was, gutting a deer or whatever on video and editing it. And he said the turning point in his life was when he realized you don't defend, you promote it, and you never ever apologize for it. And then he said from that moment on, there was no doubt in his mind, we were the good people. We were the ones who were doing it for the right reasons. And so I think as I'm listening to you speak, okay, and I've known you for a while, and with your passion and your intelligence, I couldn't see, let's say there was legislation being passed in any state, USA. Yeah. And Chester Moore shows up to say, no, we actually need this to continue. We need to hunt this animal, and it's going to be for the benefit of the animal. And an animal rights activist shows up to argue their side. I can't imagine anybody being more well-equipped with facts and more passionate and believable than someone like you. So,
well, the first hate mail I ever got was early. I was 19. I was writing for the Lamar University Student Press, and it was an animal rights person. I wrote an article about how hunters had helped bring back the deer in East Texas, and we're doing early wild turkey conservation and stuff. And I get the scathing hate letter that they gave to the teacher, and I read this, and I replied back in the publication that, hey, they said that it was okay if you had to, this is entertaining almost, if you have to kill to eat, but everybody else should be able to go to the grocery store and buy their meat. And I did provide them with the fact that those animals at the grocery store died too. And that the hundreds of millions of dollars that came from even just the hunting excise. So I gave the whole spiel.
Sure.
And the next year I turned on TV, and the lady that had accused me was being arrested for animal cruelty.
Yeah. Yeah.
That literally happened. That was an early lesson in this. So,
yeah.
But Mike, even though I don't look at people necessarily as enemies so they don't hunt or fish. I mean, I get
no, not at all.
I get that. But the ones who are militant and want to eliminate, because they want to eliminate zoological facilities, pets, animal testing, you name it. But my main thing is this. My goal is always to light a candle instead of curse the darkness. Let's show the light of truth and positive moving forward instead of always being combative. Like, you said, Michael Waddell said, like, promote instead of defend. Kind of that same idea. I'm out there in that dark outdoors realm, shining a light instead of cursing the darkness.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think sometimes people project an inner conflict on emotions that they can attach to things like animal rights or, what their pronoun is, or all this bizarre stuff that goes on in the world that is anti-science, anti-nature, anti-reality. I think it's a projection of some inner conflict that needs something to cling on to. And I think that, again, that's another conversation for another time, because I could delve into that with you. But people like you on our side is a good thing, and
I appreciate that. I'm glad someone thinks so.
I write letters every single day. I keep in touch with my elected employees, because I don't call them elected officials, because they're not in charge of my life. They work for me. And I think we've lost that. And another thing, when I was listening to you talk about, explaining this to people, how many times you heard this? You shouldn't hunt, yada, yada, yada. Just let nature run its course, or nature will take care of itself. The fact that mankind has removed himself from being part of nature is a bizarre statement, I am part of nature.
It's funny because I had a friend of mine who had a facility, and they had, different animals and things at their facility, but she wasn't a hunter. And we had a discussion about a news story where a mountain lion had showed up on a kindergarten playground several times, and there was a controversy over what to do. I said, it's a really simple solution here. 30-06, crosshairs behind the shoulder, squeeze the trigger. And
that's it.
And she was like, I can't believe you say that. The mountain lion was here first. And I said, so your house is on mountain lion habitat? No, it's no longer mountain lion habitat. So if a mountain lion shows up in your yard, wants to reclaim it by eating you for breakfast, you're going to let him kill you? I said,
right.
I love wildlife. I'll be the first to defend. I will be the first to go if we're doing something like maybe killing too many mountain lions and it's not scientifically feasible. Say, hey, wait a second, Fish and Game Department. Let's maybe look at this. Let's do it the right scientific way. However, no matter if there's 400,000 mountain lions, which there aren't, or 4, if there is a predator that's going to hurt and kill a child, the predator dies. Right. It's simple as that.
Common sense.
So you got to look at some common sense stuff with this stuff. People come first, but you have to find a way to let wildlife make a way. And we've done a good job at that. No system is perfect, but we have here in North America, called the North American Model of Conservation, is working better than anything anywhere else in the globe is.
Yeah. Yeah, and you were talking about, hunting is afforded to us as a recreation in America, which is unique because it's either, in most countries, it's either reserved for the rich or banned completely. And
like if you're in places, some of the African nations and stuff, people like places like Congo. There are dudes out there with spears literally having to get dinner. And then you got Europe, which pretty much is only the elite. And we're kind of in the middle in America. Hunting prices are way too much, and that's a whole separate show. But we still have the opportunity to go out there and pursue this, whether it's small game or whatever we're doing, at pretty much any income level. And that's a great benefit, not only for the wildlife that benefits from all the conservation money that goes in that, but also humanity, because people are still staying. There's a difference between liking nature and being a consumptive user of nature. Mm-hmm. I think you even appreciate it more if you're a consumptive user of nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you participate, you will find that the creation that is a gift to us is something to be participated in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you. I want to have you on again. I wanted to give people an overview of Chester Moore, because
good luck. I can't give myself an overview of me half the time.
I want to do a show on faith with you. Okay.
Awesome.
Because you're a guy like me, you're a down to earth cat, and there's some people, in the world of faith, and people who they become ascetic, where it's hard to speak to them on a street level, where you say, man, this doesn't ring true with me. I don't know. I read this and it kind of, but I want you, just a normal guy, to sit and talk with my audience about your walk with faith. I want to, so in another couple months, let's make sure we do that.
So it'd be an honor and a privilege to talk about that.
Yeah. It interested me because I waver, and I fight, and
Me too.
I wrestle with myself, and sometimes I don't want to be part of any congregation or any group that I'm afraid of groupthink, which I'm not saying faith is groupthink, but
don't worry. There's just as much groupthink in the outdoors industry.
There's everywhere. Yeah. So you kind of want to think things out yourself.
I get it. Well, that's a good thing about it. It's look at it as a relationship. And that's the thing. I think a lot of us have to have that journey of figuring out our faith for ourselves. And you know what? Being able to go out in the great outdoors is a great place to kind of reinforce that faith, because you have that time to clear your head,
Yeah, there's something about the woods or the water that for me, there's a sense of belonging, and not just me as an individual, the whole world, this is what it's all about. This is the real reason for this place, And so, those spiritual moments that you have. And it's hard to watch a sunrise or a sunset. It's like God flips on a switch when the birds start chirping and the sun rises all of a sudden, and you're in the woods and watching it come to life. It's hard to diminish something bigger than us. It's hard to.
You're right. It's that moment where there's a flip switch out there and everything becomes alive.
Yeah, and it's like they're all in tune. Like they've all called each other, and here we go.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because so I'm out in the woods about a month ago, and these beautiful chorus of coyotes sound. There must have been 7 or 8 of them in different directions calling out. And just instinctively being like the old horror movie fan, I go, "Children of the night, what music they make." They're doing the Dracula thing. And I'm going, man, I'm weird. I'm quoting Jesus, I'm quoting Bela Lugosi as Dracula. But, it's never ending excitement and smiles. And great things. And that's, Mike, just you and I connected over the phone here. We're bonded over this thing to where we go out in something greater than us, that we're going out this beautiful canvas, whether it's a swamp, a prairie, a forest, a mountain, a desert. There's a place where we can kind of do this almost artistic pursuit of wildlife and our own canvas, so to speak. And I'm endlessly fascinated by that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. From fish to sheep and everything in between. I have learned so much from you. And because you don't just say, "Oh, that's neat. Let me read something on you. Let me research it." You delve in. Who was the guy I talked to from Texas Fishing Game? He was making fun of you so much. He goes, "Oh, don't get more started on flounder." What was his name?
Probably Don Zeidel.
Don Zeidel, bless his heart. I had him on my program. Yes. And I said, "So you have the pleasure of working with my friend Chester Moore." And he said, "Oh, don't get that kid going on flounder, man. There's something." He goes, "He's touched with flounder. There's something wrong with him with flounder." But yeah.
We'd always harass each other about that. He'd be talking about animals eating someone. He was fat. He was like morbidly fascinated with animal attacks, which I like. It's kind of interesting too. And I'd be like, get on a flounder conversation. Don was a great guy. He left us 8 years ago, but he was a great guy.
Yeah, he was very funny. He said, "Oh, more with the flounder." And I always remember, I was trying to think of his name. Thanks for reminding me, because he was a great.
When you said the flounder thing, and that had to have been Don Zeidel.
Yeah. I have to send you a copy of that interview. I'll find it from my archives because.
I'd love to hear it. Me and him had a lot of laughs just working on back of the magazine or whatever, and he'd send me stuff. He goes, "You're the only person I know to appreciate this story," and it was some story about some poor villagers being killed by a leopard and some. And I'm going, well, that's interesting, but and then there's a good silver lining. They shot the leopard. I mean, so he was just that dark humor guy.
Yeah.
I loved and miss him. He was great.
What are some of your favorite animals to hunt?
Man, I'll hunt everything. I grew up hunting whitetails, and I still do that. I love hunting hogs. I wrote a book about it, Hog Wild. I probably have hunted waterfowl more than anything. And really, really love the waterfowl hunt. Don't do it nearly as much as I used to. But I've kind of turned over and starting to do more turkey hunting. And turkey hunting's a blast, man. It's so fun. And, I don't get to hunt nearly as much as I would love to just because of scheduling. But what's beautiful is there's a pond, a stream, an ocean or something almost everywhere I travel.
Mm-hmm.
So I can bring a rod and reel and I can go fish. So I do tons of fishing. And that's been last year, more than ever in my life, I've been fishing.
It's funny about people like us who are into the outdoors and hunting and fishing. It's more than a hobby. It's a lifestyle. It's a mental state. My daughter and I laugh because as we take road trips throughout the country, especially driving like south in Illinois, every time you cross, you could be on a highway, and you'll attest to this, I'm sure. You'd be on a highway, and if you cross and you see a wood patch, you say, I wonder where the deer bed.
No. I wrote an article about this.
Yeah, or did you really? Or a stream. You pass a stream and you say. I
literally wrote an article called What is Out There?
That's it everywhere you go, yeah.
And I said the day I stopped driving by and seeing a wood lot and wonder if there's an old buck or a bobcat or something in that wood lot.
That's it, yes.
I'm done. And it's the same thing with fishing. I remember going fishing last year before the ICAST, the fishing trade show. And we went around Orlando and we were in Miami for a day or two before that, me and my family. And I took a fly rod and I went out on a ditch. I said, I know there's peacock bass somewhere around here. And I ended up standing outside of a landfill, by a landfill, standing on a garbage bag in a ditch, catching peacock bass with a fly rod. And I realized three things out of this, Mike. Number one, I may be a little touched when it comes to this stuff to go where I was at fishing.
Yeah.
Number two, that there's a lot of biodiversity on the planet. Number three, I got screwed when it come to my ditches at my house. I had a few mudcats. There are peacock bass in the ditches down there. So.
Yeah, you got the short end of the stick with catfish instead of peacock bass.
Yeah, I got peacock bass, and we went to Orlando in front of the convention center. I got a picture on my wall here, me with a 4-pound bass I caught on the fly rod and sitting in the front of the convention center in Orlando. So
I want to come down to Texas and bowfish gar.
That's a big thing, man. And gar are amazing
delicious.
I tell you what, though. Yeah, they're great. Bow fishing's cool, but catching them on rod and reel, that is next level challenge and awesome. Right. So you could do both. And the thing about Jeremy Wade, who did River Monsters, right? Yeah. I interviewed him years ago, and I went and fished the same stretch of river he had fished in Spain for Wells catfish. And he had fished here in the Trinity River. And he told me out of all the river monsters he'd ever caught at that point, the most challenging actually to get was the alligator gar.
They're finicky. Yeah.
They're real. They're weird. I fished one my whole life. I had a gar one time. He was on my line. And it was like, he was pecking on it. I knew it was a gar. He was pecking on it for like 20 minutes. And it was just a mullet like 6 inches long. It's a 5-foot garfish. And then, see, gar got to breathe air. They breathe air. Mm-hmm. They come up and they roll. They breathe air. And my line went slack, and all of a sudden the gar came up and got a gulp of air. And then about 10 seconds later, I started getting a bite again. He left my bait, went up to the top, got a gulp of air, and went back and did it, and I eventually caught him.
They're an amazing animal. The very speck of faith is this cannot be a fluke. That's kind of what starts you. The little tiniest speck, I think, that sends anyone down that path is, well, this can't be a fluke. For example, the gar has no predators. And throughout time, raccoons found that out because as they went to eat the eggs from the gar, they would get sick and die. So like, how does that happen? It's just...
there's a lot of how that happen out in nature. I think that's part of the fun thing, man. You're sitting in your bow stand and you're bored. Lou Marilla, Eric Adams, Man of War, he'll sit there and he'll talk to me about, he likes to fish, but he says it's boring most of the time. I said, bow hunting is the most boring thing on the planet until a deer shows up.
Right.
You're sitting in the stand, but then there's that moment where the deer shows up, or you watch a ringtail in Central Texas, a beautiful ringtail, climb up out of a hole in an oak tree, and you're looking at it, oh my God, that's beautiful. You're watching some turkeys strut out in the distance, and there's always that stimuli. And then something will happen, and you go, I didn't know they had those here. Or how does that happen? Or you'll watch something small as a bobcat take down a full white-tailed deer and didn't know that little 30-pound predator could take down a 120-pound one. So I think if it was something like that we could figure out, we'd all be bored.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing about it. You can tell the best skilled fishermen on the planet. Okay, you go out on this lake, catch a largemouth bass. and they go out in that lake. They don't even get a bite that day. It's just the next day they catch 200. I mean, it's. I think there's something about it. It's like opening up a Cracker Jack box. You never, there's always a prize in there, but you got to dig through a lot of Cracker Jackers to get it.
You got to go through a lot of Cracker Jack. Yeah. Well, I definitely have seen things, heard things, watched things occur in the woods that you couldn't write a book about. I'm going to end with this. I'm going to ask for a wild story from you, but I'll give you one. I'm sitting in this fence row on public land in Illinois. It's one of those. You know what? I'm on my way home from work. The bow's in the back seat. I got my camo in a bag. Let me go watch the sunset. I get way back in this farm crop land where it's got this broken down fence. I rest right behind the fence because I see a bunch of tracks. I know this must be the trail, and they're going to that corn over there. So I'm going to sit. I'm going to sit next to on a stump and just next to a tree and see how still I could be for a while. You've been there,
Oh, yeah.
And this was a time when aluminum arrows were still the norm. And I had a quiver full of aluminum arrows on the ground and my bow on my lap. And I'm leaning up against this tree. And at one point I hear this chattering. And I look down and there's a mouse chewing on my arrow.
What?
Yeah, he was chewing the aluminum arrow. So I'm staring at this. And I'm trying not to move because I don't want him to scurry, And I'm staring out the corner of my eyes, and a cardinal lands on the arrow. And
wow.
And they stop, and they're staring at each other, and I'm staring at them, and then they both look up at me, and one takes flight and the other scurries off. But you couldn't write that script, It was just one of those bizarre things. I had been out in the woods behind my home. During the rut, the wind started picking up. I got out of the tree stand because I was nervous, and I knew rain was coming, so I was going to head back home. Shot a squirrel. It fell and didn't die because oftentimes they won't. Squirrel are tenacious little boogers. Ran into a brush pile. As I was breaking the brush pile apart to get the squirrel out, I hear a snort from behind me. I turn around, this giant 8-point buck, probably 3 feet behind me. And
wow,
those are things you can't write,
No way.
So give me a wild one. We're going to end on this. Chester Moore with us, and here's just something that he's encountered in the woods.
So I was 14 years old, and before I knew it was illegal to go hunting with my pellet gun on the railroad tracks behind the house, I was hunting with my Sheridan 20 caliber pellet gun for rabbits, which I often do in the winter. And it was a wooded back there. There was some rice fields and some forest. And I'll go back one day, and I kind of kneeled down by this levee. And I kind of kneeled down right there, this one spot, because it was getting late, and the rabbits would sometime walk out on the levee. And I hear gentle touching of leaves to my right. And I look, and about 15 feet away is a full-grown mountain lion.
Holy cow.
And I'm 14 years old. I have a Sheridan 20 caliber pellet gun. And this cat, it doesn't see me at first. It walks out, but when it got to a little clearing in front of me, in front of the levee, it turned back and looked dead into my soul. Then it jumped the levee and ran off. Well, I ran home like a fool. And believe it or not, my neighbor a block away had a mountain lion for a pet at the time. And I called her and I said, Cher, is your cat loose? I just saw it. She goes, let me go look. She goes, no, I'm looking at her right now. And they had a young cat, about a year old. And she goes, I said, why? I said, I just saw a huge mountain lion back behind the railroad tracks, maybe a half mile behind where you live back there. She goes, that must be the male. And I said, what male? She goes, Sandy, their cat went into heat last week, and there's been a male at nighttime calling back and forth.
Mm.
And that was so formative for me because it was just like National Geographic came to life in my life right there.
Isn't that something? And you just start putting all these pieces together.
My mind, and it made me obsessed with wildcats. And I already thought cougars were amazing animals anyway. Matter of fact, like a year before that, my mom and dad had bought me a framed picture of a mountain lion for my wall. So it was really a dream come true thing. But it also, journalistically, before I ever knew I was going to be a wildlife journalist, taught me that maps don't matter. that what the experts say, there aren't supposed to be cougars in Southeast Texas at that time. There was one standing right dead in front of me. And that taught me that I had to do my own investigation, my own searching. I think that was a formative part of me becoming a wildlife journalist.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, you know, wildlife species, they move. I mean, look how far north the armadillos come in, and
it's like an animal
bobcats all
looks
over
at a map.
Yeah.
Animals don't look at a map and go, well, gee, I can't go into Orange County, Texas because the experts say I'm not here.
They don't like us there.
They don't like us here. We can't cross the boundary, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's amazing. The pig thing. I remember driving through Missouri just a couple of years ago and seeing roadkill, people hitting pigs like we would hit raccoons or rabbits around here. Giant hogs on the side of the road. Just it's a changing world. And Chester Moore, once again, how can people find out what you do and what you're all about, brother?
Well, you can go to highercalling.net, and that's my blog. If you forget that address, just remember my name, chestermoore.com. You can go to chestermoore.com, and you can link out to all of our work through either one of those and see all the stuff we have out there. My podcast, Higher Calling Wildlife, you can listen to that on every kind of podcast media platform, and we appreciate the opportunity to share wildlife conservation. And Mike, I thank you for the opportunity to come talk with you on your program. It's been awesome.
Well, you've always been very kind to me, and I've actually used blurbs that you've given me to sell commercials. That's a little, you know how that is. You get the testimonials. Chester Moore says, but no. Listen,
I got those in my books and stuff all over the place. People, yeah.
You are definitely a force to be reckoned with, my friend, and thank you so much. And I do want to have you on again real soon. So God bless you and your wife, your daughter, and all the good work you're doing.
Thank you, brother. God bless, man.
The Mike Tamano Happening.